Before we start diving into the story, please take a second to like this video and subscribe. It only takes a second, but it will help the channel grow. Thank you for your interest in our channel. I arrived at the old family mansion on a dreary, rain-soaked evening, the sound of droplets tapping against time-worn windows and moss-covered walls. The mansion, nestled in a secluded corner of upstate New York, once resonated with laughter and warmth, a stark contrast to its current atmosphere of cold desolation. I stepped through the heavy oak door, my heart pounding with memories of happier days and a bittersweet longing for what had been lost. Inside, the halls whispered secrets of the past. Every creaking floorboard and faded portrait seemed to murmur fragments of family history, reminding me of moments of joy now shrouded by the haze of regret and sorrow. My steps echoed as I made my way through dimly lit corridors, the dim glow of antique lamps casting long, wavering shadows that danced across walls stained by time. It felt as if the mansion itself was holding its breath, caught in a timeless moment where the echoes of laughter clashed with the silence of abandonment. I wasn't alone for long. In the parlor, amidst the lingering scent of old books and a faint trace of my mother's perfume, I met my father, Nathan. His face, etched with years of unspoken pain and muted remorse, turned towards me with an expression that mingled hope and hesitation. We had not spoken honestly since her passing. A silent chasm of unresolved grief and unvoiced accusations had grown between us over the years. In that heavy moment, the space between us felt both vast and fragile, as though any word might shatter what little remained. "Hi, Dad," I said softly, my voice betraying a mixture of nostalgia and apprehension. His eyes flickered with recognition, and a sorrow that ran deeper than the weathered wood of this old place. There was so much left unsaid, too many wounds left raw from the past. We stood there in a hesitant embrace of silence, the kind that speaks louder than any carefully chosen words. As the storm outside raged on, so too did the turbulent emotions inside me. I was overwhelmed by the bittersweet ache of lost love and the heavy burden of memories. Each step I took further into the mansion's depths brought a new wave of recollections, of laughter, tears, and the fleeting moments of happiness that now felt like fragments of a distant dream. In that instant, I realized that returning here was not just a journey back to a physical place, but also a brave step into confronting the shadows of my past. The next evening, I found myself in a modest lakeside restaurant that looked as if it were plucked from a simpler time, a haven where city clamor had given way to whispered conversations and the gentle lapping of water against the shore. The interior was intimate yet alive, with softly lit candles on each table and the muted hum of acoustic music in the background. The air carried a hint of nostalgia, blending the aromas of freshly baked bread and simmering broth with the crisp scent of the lake breeze drifting in through an open window. I had barely settled into a corner seat when the universe decided to intervene. Across the room, our eyes met, a stranger with an aura that seemed both mysterious and achingly familiar. His name, as fate would have it, was Dylan. He sat alone at the bar, his gaze lingering thoughtfully on the ripples in his drink. There was something in his eyes, a glimmer of unspoken dreams and hidden regrets, that resonated with the long-dormant parts of me. It was as if he carried within him the echoes of promises once made and lost, the kind of promises I had buried beneath years of routine and resignation. "Isn't it odd how a single glance can awaken memories you thought were long forgotten?" Dylan remarked as he walked over, his tone gentle yet laced with a daring confidence. His voice was soft and reassuring, yet there was an edge to it, a suggestion that he, too, had danced with the ghosts of his past. In that brief moment, as our eyes locked, an unspoken understanding passed between us. The past and present were colliding in a way that promised both risk and redemption. Throughout dinner, our conversation unfolded like a well-rehearsed symphony of double entendres and careful confessions. Each word and gesture hinted at unresolved feelings and dreams I had long abandoned. Dylan's stories were sprinkled with subtle allusions to his own battles with regret and ambition, and I found myself revealing pieces of my soul I hadn't dared to revisit since leaving the old mansion behind. The room seemed to shrink around us, the background noise fading into insignificance as his presence stirred something deep within, a stirring of hope, desire for change, and a longing to reconcile with the person I once dreamed of becoming. By the time dessert arrived, a delicate slice of cherry pie that melted away like the remnants of my old self, I realized that our encounter was no random coincidence. It was a turning point. In Dylan's eyes, I saw not just a reflection of my past, but the promise of a future where the boundaries between what was and what could be began to blur. This unplanned twist was quietly rewriting the narrative of my life, one subtle glance and whispered word at a time. The morning after the lakeside dinner, I strolled along the familiar, winding streets of the small town where I'd grown up, a patchwork of cobblestone lanes, quirky coffee shops, and time-worn storefronts that still echoed with the laughter and chatter of bygone days. The crisp air carried whispers of nostalgia as I made my way toward the old square, where memories and secrets were as common as the passing faces. There, amidst a group of familiar smiles and weathered expressions, I encountered Melissa and Jordan, two old friends whose presence felt like a balm to my turbulent thoughts. Melissa's eyes sparkled with the mischief of shared childhood adventures, while Jordan's calm, steady demeanor grounded the emotional whirlwind I had been riding. We exchanged greetings, and soon the conversation naturally gravitated toward the bittersweet remnants of our past. Between sips of strong coffee and casual laughter, long-buried grievances began to surface like fragile reflections in a murky pond. As we reminisced, subtle hints of old betrayals and unresolved tensions slipped into our dialogue. The conversation was charged with a delicate mix of camaraderie and caution. Every now and then, I caught glimpses of Dylan's face in my mind, the man whose presence had so unexpectedly stirred emotions I thought I had long suppressed. The tension was palpable, a fine thread of trust stretched dangerously between old friends and new attractions. In the midst of these exchanges, something unexpected happened. One quiet pause, as our laughter faded into an unspoken awareness of all that was left unsaid, I found myself drifting back into the magnetic pull of Dylan's earlier words. As if drawn by an irresistible force, I excused myself from the group and wandered down a narrow, tree-lined alley where the sounds of the town softened into a gentle murmur. It was there, in that secluded corridor of memories and possibility, that Dylan appeared again. Without preamble, he closed the distance between us. Our eyes met, a collision of past sorrow and the glimmer of a shared future, and in that charged silence, our lips met in a kiss that was as unexpected as it was profound. The kiss was tender and laden with unspoken longing, yet it carried an undercurrent of pain, a bittersweet reminder of lost time and the impossibility of reclaiming the past. For a fleeting moment, the boundaries between old hurts and new desires blurred into a single, incandescent emotion. The intensity of that moment shattered the comfortable yet fragile routine of the morning. It felt as though, with that kiss, every unspoken apology, every forgotten dream, and every silent accusation had converged into a single heartbeat. Yet beneath the tender intimacy lay an unyielding sense of foreboding, a quiet premonition that the secrets and betrayals of our shared histories would soon claw their way to the surface. As I slowly pulled away, I looked into Dylan's eyes and saw the same conflicted reflection of hope and despair. We both understood that the delicate line of trust we were navigating was as beautiful as it was perilous, and that every gesture, every whispered word, carried the potential to heal or to further unravel the fragile ties that bound us. In that moment, the promise of reconciliation danced precariously with the threat of impending chaos, leaving me to wonder, could the wounds of the past ever truly be healed, or were we merely patching up scars destined to resurface? Returning to the mansion felt like stepping into a pressure cooker of unresolved tensions. The walls, once silent witnesses to tender family moments, now seemed to buzz with whispered secrets and half-spoken confessions. I moved cautiously through the familiar corridors, each step resonating with the weight of unsaid words and suppressed emotions. The air was thick with the kind of tension that made every creak of the floorboard a herald of inevitable revelations. In the dim light of the drawing room, where the flicker of a single lamp cast long, uncertain shadows, I found my father, Nathan. His posture was slumped, a silent admission of the heavy burdens he carried. It was as if the years had etched deeper lines into his face, lines that spoke of long-held regrets and the silent agony of secrets too painful to voice. Today, however, there was an unusual hesitance in his eyes, an almost desperate need to share something that had been kept locked away for too long. Without the preamble of rehearsed small talk, Nathan's voice broke the fragile silence. "Rachel, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his tone wavering between remorse and a longing for absolution. His confession came out in halting phrases, each word laden with a history of hidden betrayals. For months, he admitted, he had been secretly corresponding with a woman, someone who had been a silent pillar of support during the darkest moments of his life. He explained that her presence had offered him a glimmer of solace, a reprieve from the loneliness that had gnawed at him ever since your mother's passing. As he spoke, I felt an odd mix of shock and a stirring of empathy. His revelation was not just about the clandestine communication. It was a raw, unguarded glimpse into the inner turmoil that had driven him to seek comfort outside the family circle. "I felt abandoned," he confessed, his eyes meeting mine with a blend of vulnerability and defiance. "It wasn't just about the loss of your mother. It was about feeling invisible, unsupported, like I was left to weather everything on my own." Listening to him, I experienced a surge of conflicting emotions. The betrayal stung sharply. Here was my own father, someone I had expected to be a bastion of strength, now confessing to a hidden liaison that undermined the foundation of our family's trust. Yet, beneath that sting lay a deeper understanding. His loneliness was a wound that had festered over years, mirroring my own sense of abandonment in a world that had shifted so drastically. The conversation escalated as we both bared the raw edges of our pain. His words, laced with a bitter acknowledgement of his failings, echoed in the silent room as if trying to fill the void left by years of unspoken despair. "I'm sorry if you feel betrayed," he murmured, his voice thick with regret. "But sometimes, when you're drowning in your own sorrow, you search for any lifeline, even if it comes from unexpected places." In that charged moment, the mansion's somber atmosphere seemed to pulse with the intensity of our shared grief and unfiltered truths. I realized that his confession was not merely an admission of infidelity, but a desperate plea for understanding, a reminder that we are all prisoners of our own scars, struggling to find solace in a world that rarely offers absolution. As his words echoed off the cold stone walls, I felt the fragile threads of resentment and empathy intertwine, marking a turning point in our relationship where honesty, painful as it was, began to pave the way for a reluctant reconciliation. After the raw confessions and aching silences of the mansion, my world spun into a dizzying new realm at an art exhibition in downtown Brooklyn. The gallery buzzed with an electric energy, every corner alive with vibrant paintings that shouted secrets and whispered long-forgotten confessions. I wandered among the canvases, each stroke of color mirroring the chaos that had begun to infiltrate my carefully compartmentalized life. The air was thick with the scent of turpentine and ambition, and every conversation felt laced with double meanings. It wasn't long before I encountered Ashley, a man whose presence exuded a quiet intensity, the kind that hinted at hidden layers beneath a seemingly polished exterior. He was my father's ex-boyfriend, a detail that sent shockwaves through my already fragile sense of family history. Ashley's reputation was as enigmatic as the abstract art surrounding us, and his unexpected appearance at this gallery only deepened the mystery. There was an unspoken gravity about him, a magnetism that drew me in even as it warned me of impending complications. In the midst of hushed exchanges and fervent discussions about the symbolism behind each piece, I learned something that made my heart race. Dylan, the charming stranger who had awakened dormant desires and painful memories in me, was not just a passing figure. He was an old friend of Ashley, an association that carried with it a tangled web of ulterior motives and suppressed agendas. Their connection, veiled in casual remarks and half-smiles, hinted at a past riddled with betrayal and hypocrisy. Every time I caught a knowing glance between the two, I felt as if I were peering into a labyrinth where trust was the minotaur waiting to devour the unwary. The dialogues that unfolded felt like intricate puzzles, each comment, each exchange looked a piece of a larger, darker picture. As I navigated the crowded room, I couldn't shake the feeling that the art on the walls was merely a backdrop to the real masterpiece unfolding in human relationships. Every word spoken, every gesture made, was loaded with implications far beyond the surface. The simplicity I once believed in had disintegrated into a maze of hidden alliances and secret vendettas, leaving me to wonder if I could ever untangle the truth from the layers of deceit. In that moment, surrounded by the chaotic beauty of Brooklyn's art scene, I realized that every relationship I had trusted was built on shifting sands. The deeper I delved into this maze of personal histories and unspoken rivalries, the more I questioned the authenticity of every smile, every embrace. Trust, it seemed, was nothing more than an illusion, one that could shatter with a single, revelatory glance. Returning to the mansion that had borne witness to so many of our secrets, I felt an unsettling shift in the air, a palpable tension, as if every corner was preparing to spill its hidden truths. The once familiar rooms, steeped in memories of laughter and sorrow, now echoed with murmurs of betrayal. It was during one of these heavy moments that a scandal, sharp and unexpected, unraveled the fragile threads of trust I'd clung to so desperately. It started with a whispered conversation, half heard behind a closed door, and slowly grew into undeniable proof. Dylan, the man whose presence had ignited a spark of hope in the midst of my grief, was entangled in a web of deceit. I discovered, with a heart-wrenching clarity, that he had been unfaithful, engaging in a secret affair with Melissa, the friend I had once considered my closest ally. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave. Suddenly, every smile, every gentle word, was painted with the colors of manipulation and self-interest. In the dim light of the dining room, where we had all gathered moments before for what was meant to be a hopeful reunion, the air turned thick with accusation and despair. The clink of cutlery against china, once a comforting background rhythm, now served as a jarring reminder of my shattered illusions. My mind raced with a tumult of questions. How could Dylan, the one person who had seemed to promise a bridge from my troubled past to a brighter future, betray me so deeply? And how could Melissa, whose loyalty I had trusted implicitly, become complicit in such deception? Anger and heartbreak surged through me, intertwining into a bitter cocktail of disillusionment. Every whispered conversation from earlier that day, the half-smiles, the evasive glances, suddenly made sense, revealing layers of deceit I had never anticipated. The mansion itself seemed to mourn with me, its cold walls absorbing my quiet sobs as I wandered from room to room, searching for a sliver of the truth amidst the ruins of trust. That night, in the silent solitude of my childhood bedroom, I confronted the harsh reality. The people I once believed in were not immune to selfish desires and hidden agendas. The shock of Dylan's betrayal, compounded by Melissa's unexpected involvement, left me questioning not just the relationships I had nurtured but also my own judgment and capacity to see through facades. It was a moment of painful clarity, where the ideals of loyalty and love crumbled before my eyes, revealing raw human frailty underneath. Yet, in the midst of this emotional devastation, a strange insight began to emerge. Perhaps, through this heartache, I might finally understand the true motives that drove those around me, and even my own. The pain, as excruciating as it was, became a reluctant mirror reflecting back the complexities of desire, trust, and betrayal. As I sat in that silent room, the once crisp lines of my world blurred, leaving behind a haunting question. Could there ever be redemption after such a profound loss of innocence? The city was transformed by a gentle snowfall that evening, each delicate flake catching the glow of neon signs and streetlights, casting a magical sheen over the urban landscape. I found refuge in a newly opened cafe at the heart of downtown, its bright, modern interior a stark contrast to the somber memories of home. Every patron appeared absorbed in their own thoughts, their hushed conversations and quiet contemplations blending with the soft background hum of a jazz tune. The ambience was strangely uplifting, yet heavy with unspoken emotions. I sat alone near a window that framed the falling snow like a living painting, when unexpectedly, my father, Nathan, walked through the door. His presence was both a comfort and a torment, a reminder of everything we had tried to mend, and everything that still lay fractured between us. The years had etched deeper lines into his face, each one narrating silent regrets and unfulfilled apologies. Our eyes met, and for a moment, the bustling cafe hushed around us, as if we were the only two souls in the universe caught in the gravity of our shared past. "Rachel," he began, his voice low and hesitant, "I've been meaning to speak with you, really speak." His tone was laden with a mix of bitterness and sorrow, a raw honesty that cut through the veneer of formality. I nodded, urging him to continue, though the memories of our past arguments and unspoken grievances churned like a storm within me. I'm sorry, Nathan confessed, almost inaudibly at first, as if he feared that the weight of those words might shatter what little remained of our fragile connection. I've been carrying so much regret about choices I made, about the distance I created between us. I thought I was protecting you, but I realized now I was only building walls. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, mirroring the sadness that had haunted me for years. I found my voice amid the swirl of emotions. Dad, I felt so abandoned, so misunderstood. I replied, my tone equal parts anger and despair. Every time I looked for you, all I found were excuses and empty promises. I needed you to be real with me, to share your pain instead of hiding behind silence. The words spilled out, unfiltered and painful, as if each syllable was a shard of the broken mirror reflecting our shared past. For several long minutes, we sat in charged silence, the only sound the soft clinking of cups and the distant murmur of other conversations. Then, in a moment of cathartic vulnerability, our dialogue shifted from reproach to raw introspection. Our exchanges, bristling with sarcasm, laced with bitter laughter, and punctuated by tears, became the mirror in which we saw our true selves, two wounded souls trying desperately to reconcile the hurt of old betrayals with the hope for healing. That evening, amidst the warmth of the cafe and the cold clarity of truth, we began to see that our failures and flaws were not signs of weakness, but scars from battles we both fought. As we left the cafe under a canopy of softly falling snow, a tentative understanding emerged between us. We knew that the journey toward forgiveness would be long and fraught with painful memories, yet for the first time in years, our broken reflections promised the possibility of genuine connection and perhaps redemption.